Good morning, dear students. Uh, we are discussing the Indian poetry in English, and we have discussed a lot background about how English education was developed or was spread in India, and how that English education uh, inspires Indian to write in English. How much advantages and disadvantages uh, we get by using English, but some says that if we are not able to express our feelings and emotions and our atmosphere with the help of foreign language, whereas some other argues that English is a link language, and if we are expressing our ideas in that language, the person all around the world, all around India can understand our atmosphere, our ideas, because as far as our especially India is concerned, we live in multicultural society, a multilingual society, so that the English can bind the whole India together, because for each and every nook and corner of India, we generally use English as official language, and so it will be the very helpful to spread our ideas all over our India, all over the world. And that's why there were some other poets who also tried to write in their mother tongue, but after that they translated their work in English that may be read and understood by the other people also. Such type of attempts were made in India to spread our philosophy, I think, our ideas, our background, our feelings and emotions to all over the world, all over India. So we have to discuss some major poets in Indian English poetry. So first one is the Henry Louis Vivian Dvoraji. These particular poets come to the first phase that we call generally the imitative phase. Means after getting the English education, they try to write their poetry in English, but they were totally inspired by the romantic poets, and they never try to do anything extra, or we can say different from their style of writing, their way of expressing thought, their matter and all that thing. They just try to imitate them. That's why this particular poets belongs to the imitative phase of the Indian English writing. So Henry Louis Vivian Dvoraji was born in 1809 and was dead in 1831. He was one of the first Indian poet who write in English. He was one of the first Indian poets who write in English. Born to Anglo-Indian parents, he had access to an education in English long before the 1835. We know very well the Act of 1835 brought the English education to India. But before that, long before that, he got the English education. And Dvoraji was of the Portuguese descent, but considered himself Indian and was fiercely devoted to his native state, Bengal. Fiercely devoted to his native state, Bengal. He was appointed a teacher in English literature at a Hindu college, where he encouraged his students and peers to think freely and question tradition. Though he drew the ear of his more conservative and orthodox peers, he inspired a band of loyal followers who came to be known as Dvorajians. And Dvoraji's writings were partly responsible for creating an intellectual renaissance in Bengal, known as the Young Bengal movement. This Dvorajian wanted to reform society and criticize the ritualistic religion as well as practicalized child marriage, and their aim was to restore India to the glory that it once supposedly had. Dvoraji wrote in his famous poem, To India, My Native Land. So, dear student, he is one of the first Indian poet who writes in English. He got English education long before the arrival of the 1835's Act, English Education Act. He was also appointed as a teacher at a Hindu college, and he fiercely considered himself. He was Portuguese descent, but personally he was fiercely devoted to his native state Bengal. So, if we consider his social life, we generally come to know he was very critical of the tradition and we can say the habits that were followed at that time in Bengal, like childhood marriage and other bad habits. He was totally against that. He encourages his peers, his colleagues and his students also to think differently, to be the opposite of what the bad habits the society are following. And he always tried to write his poetry to expose the follies lying in such societies, and he was against such bad habits that were in practice in Bengal. So, he inspired his peers and students and created the band of loyal followers, and that followers, the band of followers, came to be known as Dvorajians. And Dvoraji's rising were partly responsible for the creating intellectual renaissance. Renaissance means reborn, we can say rebirth, पुनर्जीवन म्हणतो आपण त्याला, पुनर्निर्माण. That was the renaissance period. He generally creates such type of renaissance in Bengal, and he create one movement, and that movement is called the Young Bengal movement. The Dvorajians, the follower of Dvoraji, wanted to reform society, wanted to create some new changes in the society, and criticize the ritualistic religion as well as practical and child marriage. Ritualistic religions means we are generally so engrossed in the rituals only, because that rituals are not so helpful to maintain the social peace. Such type of rituals were followed at that time in Bengal. Such bad habits like child marriage also were in practice at that time in Bengal, and against all that they try to create some awareness in the mind of people living in such society, particularly in Bengal. Their aim was to restore India to the glory that it once supposedly had. Dvoraji wrote in his famous poem, To India, My Native Land. What does he write? My country, in thy days of glory is past, the beauteous halo circle round thy brow, and worshipped as deity thou wast. And where is that glory? Where that reverence now? It means that was the time when the particular India, the land of India, the country India was revered like a deity, and that such type of beauty that we had in past in our country. And while when we think about this particular period, where he says the particular India was worshipped as a deity, and now where is that glory and where the reverence now? And that type of reverence, that type of worship, that type of respect, where has gone that respect, where has gone that glory? Such type of feelings, such type of reverence he generally has for the nation, and he just try to restore India to the past glories. And that's why he asks, where has gone that glory, where has gone that beauties of our nation? And again, in the harp of India, music once was sweet, who hears it now? Why doth the breeze sigh over thee in vain? Silence hath bound thee with her fatal chain. Neglected, mute, desolate art thou. like the ruined monument on desert plain. First, dear student, we when observe the writing style of Henry Dvoraji, we see the very much archaic words like thy. Thy means yours. Thy means yours. Thy music once was sweet, harp of India. Thy music once was sweet, who hears it now? That was the time when the music of India was so sweet, so famous all over the world. But who hears it now? But there is no one to hear it. Why such type of incidents happen in India? Why doth means do, does. Why doth breeze sigh over thee? Thee means you. Over thee in vain. In vain means in futile. Why doth the breeze sigh over thee in vain? The breeze that is blowing on thee is in vain. There is nothing to do with you. The silence hath means has. Silence hath bound thee, thee means you, with her fatal chain. That silence means when we observe the situation in India in this particular period in 1855 and after the advent of the British rule in India, the India had become so silent that nobody could raise their voice against that British, and the operations of British were so in that exploited the very much the spirit of India at that time, and that's why on the basis of that background, he has tried to express his views regarding the overall situations of India. Silence hath bound thee with her fatal chain. Fatal means very disastrous chain, and neglected, mute, desolate art thou. Art means are, thou means you. And now India is so neglected, so mute, and so desolate, and like a ruined monument on the desert plain. Like a ruined monument means that we see in the historical buildings, that monuments, that when they are ruined, nobody is there to observe them. Such type of situation has become in the life of Indian people, in the life of India. Such type of very patriotic feelings we can generally get from the writing of Henry Dvoraji. So dear student, he was the first man to produce such type of poems, and with the helping with through his poems he also tried to inspire the other peers, means colleagues and other students. The other poems concerns the most important thing, you have to note it down, his poem To India My Native Land. You just who wrote this poem To India My Native Land, you must know the writer is Henry Dvoraji. Then Harp of India, who is the author of Harp of India? Then again it is Henry Dvoraji. You just write it in your notebook, because whatever we are discussing is about your information, but particularly whatever work they have written in their whole life is most important for you for examination point of view. So just write down To India My Native Place, the Harp of India. These are work written by Henry Dvoraji. Other poem concerns with the social political themes include the freedom to the slave, orphan girl, which are about the plight of those marginalized in the society. Marginalized means suppressed, oppressed, exploited by the allied group or the authorities in the society. That's why he tried to just express his views, social political views through his poetries, and that poems were freedom to slave, orphan girl, which were about the marginalized, about the plight means very disastrous situation, plight of the marginalized in the society. So you must also write down the work like freedom to slave and orphan girl. These are like also poems written by Henry Dvoraji. His other works like A Walk by the Moonlight, Song of the Hindustani Minstrel, Going to Darkness, A Walk by Moonlight, Song of Hindustani Minstrel, Going to the Darkness are the romantic poems about the beauties of nature and love. And these are the some we can say he not only just write about the social and political situation, but he also tried to express his views regarding the beauties of the nature and the love. So in that compartment we have the poem like The Walk by Moonlight, Song of Hindustani Minstrel, and Going to Darkness. These are the most important poem written by Henry Thoreau. You must keep it, you must put it in your notebook. So dear students, thank you. The Torudot, another the poet is belonging to that phase we will discuss tomorrow.